There's several things, but you always have to start with the basics. And sleep is probably the number one thing. It's something that we don't think of often, but it's such a big part of preventing the aging process. And I tell all parents, you have to do this. Have dedicated quiet time. And there was a time every day where we said, it's time for quiet time. And everyone went to their little respective rooms and places, and nobody spoke. And that usually was a 30-minute to 1 hour period of the day. And it really, even to this day, now our last one's in college, but even to this day, they say, I kind of like that we had this quiet time. And even though they complain, kids are going to complain. Even now, it's more important because lots of my kids didn't have the smartphones. They're much older than that generation. Some did. But even now, it's incredibly important because we're bombarded with technology all the time. When we take care of our gut, we take care of our entire body.
Welcome to yourbrilliance.com. I'm your host, Amy Waterman. And today we're going to find out why the secret to staying young might just start in your gut. Now, it's pretty common knowledge that what we eat plays a big role in our health. We know that fast foods and sugar are aging, and we know that fruits and vegetables make us live forever. But what about all the other stuff? Like the kind of stuff they sell in the health food stores. Should we be taking probiotics and collagen and superfoods and supplements, or is there some sort of magic youth pill we should be popping? Well, to make sense of the science of youth, we have invited Judy Gaman onto the show. Judy is a health and wellness expert with a degree from the prestigious George Washington University School of Medicine and Health Sciences. She's the award-winning author of 2 books on aging, Age to Perfection and Stay Young, and you can find her on the airwaves as the co-host of her nationally syndicated Staying Young show. Her latest book, Love, Life, and Lucille, is a memoir about what she learned from a sassy centenarian. Welcome, Judy.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
So you must feel awfully young. I mean, you've done all this research. What is your personal anti-aging regime? Like, what have you found that actually works for you?
Well, there's several things, but you always have to start with the basics. And sleep is probably the number one thing. It's something that we don't think of often, but it's such a big part of preventing the aging process. It used to be that we thought, well, if we got 5 or 6 hours of sleep, we're good, 7's okay. But new research on sleep actually shows us that when we're asleep, when we're in that deep sleep, that REM sleep, our brain actually washes itself like a washing machine. It scrubs away the plaques and things that build up in the brain. And when we go to sleep, a lot of people think, well, I slept 4 hours here and 4 hours there. I got 8 hours of sleep. But the key is that you have to have continuous sleep, because as you go through the sleep cycles, it actually cycles your body through. And then each time you go through a cycle, your REM sleep is a little bit longer. So you want really good, long, deep REM sleep, but you can only get it through continuous sleep. So sleep's a big part of anti-aging.
So is that 8 hours? Like, how many hours are we talking about?
Well, 7.5 to 8 is great. Some people need 8.5. There's a lot of research that shows if you sleep more than 8.5, you get into like the 9, there's actually some negative effects to sleeping too long. So there is, too much of a good thing in sleep as well. I like to tell people, if you can get a good 7.5 hours of uninterrupted sleep, that's perfect. And then if you really can do this, take some downtime during the day. It can only be like 15, 20 minutes, but just time where you can calm your brain, sit quietly. That doesn't mean looking on your phone or looking on your computer, but actually thinking of nothing, just being present in the moment. That also has great benefits.
And it's also a great way to torture your children. I actually did that last night. My daughter had been sick, and I said, you know what, you're going to lie down with me for 20 minutes. And she said, I am not. Can I bring my tablet? I said, no. And I said, we'll lie down together and I'll cuddle you, but we are not looking at your tablet. And she didn't fall asleep, but I think it was pretty good for both of us.
Well, my husband and I actually have 10 children. between the two of us. And
Wow.
we always did this one thing in the house. And I tell all parents, you have to do this. Have dedicated quiet time. And there was a time every day where we said, it's time for quiet time. And everyone went to their little respective rooms and places, and nobody spoke. And that usually was a 30-minute to 1 hour period of the day. And it really, even to this day, now our last one's in college, but even to this day, they say, I kind of like that we had this quiet time. And even though they complain, kids are going to complain. Even now, it's more important because lots of my kids didn't have the smartphones. They were they're much older than that generation. Some did, but even now, it's incredibly important because we're bombarded with technology all the time. And just a simple act of looking down and at your phone, it actually puts pressure on the back of the neck. It actually has trouble with you. You can have trouble with your eyes. You can get dark circles under your eyes from the use of the cell phone, and then bringing it back to sleep. When you're on your phone or on your computer, you're actually getting blue light. And what blue light does to the body is it actually tells us that it's daytime. We need to be awake. So if we're on the phone, we're on the computer, and then we try to go to bed, our body doesn't actually produce melatonin, which is very, very important to sleep and deep sleep. So technology is great, but we got to monitor it and we got to regulate it in ourselves and in our children.
That's so interesting because we don't actually think of technology use as aging. But as you pointed out, there's a lot of factors in it. One of the things we do link to aging, though, is, of course, chemicals. And I have to admit, I am one of those fans of that natural health movement. I like my clean, organic food. I like to put stuff on my face that I could actually eat because it's not going to cover it with chemicals.
It
But
smells good.
there are experts out there who say that chemicals are the only things that deliver real anti-aging results, and that if there is going to be a fountain of youth out there, it will definitely be made in a laboratory. What's your view on that natural chemical debate?
Oh, I love this debate. And I'm going to use an example. I'm going to use resveratrol as an example. So resveratrol is found in the skin of grapes, right? And some researchers came out early on and said, oh, if you drink lots of wine, you're going to get resveratrol, you're going to have anti-aging properties. You'd have to drink so much wine that you wouldn't be able to actually go to work, or, the amount of wine you would need would negate any benefits. But I will tell you that we do know that resveratrol, and there's even pure forms of resveratrol that are great for anti-aging. We've seen some really good research on this in early dementia and Alzheimer's patients. We've seen it in all kinds of ways. People tend to just feel better overall, and it's a great way for us to get a natural use. Now, the person who did the research on resveratrol, discovered it, Jello Research, actually was bought off by SmithKline. And the reason is they wanted all the research, and they want to find a synthetic version of it, because you cannot patent something that's natural. Like, for example, we know that avocados are great for us. Nobody can go out and say, oh, we're going to patent avocados, right? So when we get into the difference between natural products, some things that are found in nature that are really good for us, and the synthetic products, just follow the money. We know that pharmaceutical companies cannot patent natural things, but they can patent and mimic synthetic versions of those natural things. Now, there are synthetic things that are great, and sometimes there's things that are natural that are really good for us, but we have to surround them with something that may not be so natural to make them bioavailable, to be able to use them. I use something called Lifeline Stem Cell Cream, and I love it. It has pluripotent stem cells, or some other stem cells out there that come from plant stem cells. Well, we're not plants, so they're not going to work the same, right? These are human pluripotent stem cells. They work great, but they have to find a way to put them into something that helps them absorb. So yes, this is a natural product, but it also is being combined with something that gives it the mechanism to be absorbed in the skin and to work right. So sometimes it's a combination. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this is all, it's all science, and this is all stuff we did not learn in high school.
I know, right?
So I want to talk about something that's really new. Well, I say really new because there's no way I learned this in high school. The gut is a big deal nowadays. We hear it everywhere. So we chew our food, we swallow it, it goes into our stomach, it turns into energy. How does this have anything to do with aging?
Oh, it has everything to do with aging. There was a time, and not that long ago, I mean, under a decade, where we really didn't appreciate or understand what was going on in the gut. We thought basically our bodies were governed by our brains and, somewhat by our hearts, but our gut turns out to be the most important, perhaps arguably most important part of our body, because within our body and on our body, we have little microorganisms. These microorganisms must work together. Think of like a rainforest, right? You have a giant ecosystem. Everybody's body has an ecosystem. And when you take things in that are going to disrupt that ecosystem, that's when we get into trouble. So this is where you can see you put something on your body and you have a rash, maybe you put it on your skin. Your body doesn't react well to it. Well, we often don't think about the things we put in our mouth. Yet we're taking packaged and processed foods, we're taking artificial sweeteners, we're going back to chemicals like you mentioned, we're using chemicals, we're ingesting them. Now we know that doing so, we are causing problems and causing irritations within the gut lining and killing off some of the very good bacteria. The very bacteria that's going to help prevent disease and keep us healthy is dying off by some of the things we take because we think they're healthy. We think they're going to help us. Now, there actually is a new nerve system they've come out with, and they've actually, the ENT, and that it has to do with the connection between the brain and the gut. This is really fascinating. We found that the microbiome in the gut actually talks to the brain. So when we have people that have like bipolar disorder or they have depression and things like this, new research shows that they also have commonalities within their gut biome, their microbiome. And the same is true for immunity. We now know that 80% of our immunity lies within our gut. So if you want to heal yourself, you've got to start with your gut. It shouldn't be the last thought. Now, having said that, we have the antibiotic issue. And antibiotics are necessary sometimes. So I want to put that out there. I never want to say don't ever take an antibiotic because they save lives, right? But there's an overuse of antibiotics. And a lot of this was really popular in the 90s. We had lots of parents running their kids to the doctor, and we had some really great things that come out like Zithromax, and I'm just naming that as one of them. But there were lots of antibiotics that came out that were really cutting edge. There was a lot of research on the antibiotics, and we started to use them more than usual because we did have more research on, and we did have more options. The problem is we overuse them. So two things happened with this. One, we disrupted that microbiome within the gut. That is a big problem. And then the second thing is we built up resistance, and now we have these superbugs. So we have people getting sick, maybe they're getting strep throat or they're getting some kind of bizarre illness. We know it's bacterial because viruses cannot be treated with antibiotics, but bacterial can. And we know that they have a bacterial infection, but finding now antibiotics that will work on that patient or work on that bug are becoming harder and harder. So there's a big discussion within the medical community to kind of hold off on which antibiotics we're giving, when we're giving them. Some things, there are some bacterial infections that actually will resolve on their own. You may be uncomfortable a little bit longer, but they just require a lot of monitoring. Those are just some minor things. But obviously, you get into a major infection, that's serious. You're going to need antibiotics. But if you do need antibiotics, there also should be that discussion with the healthcare provider that says, look, you got to have these antibiotics, but we also have to be mindful of your gut. So here's what we're going to do to course correct after you've taken the antibiotics and we've gotten rid of what we need to get rid of.
So, of course, this brings up the question, should we all be taking probiotics? Because maybe we can eat what we want, but as long as we take the probiotics, our gut's going to be fine. Does it work like that?
Well, yes and no. How's that for an answer? So there's probiotics and prebiotics. So probiotics are in the actual organisms that we need in our gut, right? And prebiotics are the food that those organisms need to live off of. And this is why we now understand how come vegetables are so important. We've always heard, oh, eat 7 vegetables a day. You got to have your vegetables. And back granny and mom and everybody would say, you got to have vegetables, you got to have vegetables. We knew that people that ate their vegetables were healthier. And we always chalked it up to, oh, it must be the vitamins and minerals in them, which, yes, that's important. But we now also know that a lot of these things also feed the good bacteria, and the good bacteria needs food. So if you are a meat and potatoes person and you're never eating like asparagus and sauerkraut and all of these other things, you're missing out on what your gut really needs. So that brings me to some new research. I don't know if you saw the study, but there was a study recently that came out that said, having like yogurt or some of these probiotic type healthy foods, right, are not necessarily going to get your gut biome where it needs to be. And I completely agree. And really what we've gotten into, especially with yogurts, is they label them as, yes, we have probiotics, and they stick fruit in the bottom, and they put artificial sweeteners, and they kind of negate any benefit you would have. So you got to be really, really careful with those. And yes, they're good, but more and more research shows that if we're going to use a probiotic, we really need to use like a pharmaceutical grade, multi-strain probiotic. Those work the best. There are some at the store, but you have to remember that when you get into things that are bought at the store, there's not as much regulation in how it's packaged, how it's processed, and how it's shipped. And when we're talking about probiotics, we're talking about living organisms. So they cannot withstand, say, the heat of 110 degrees in Texas. They're all shipped in a box, but nothing is in there to keep that interior of that box cool. So you got to be careful. You got to be mindful. You have to be educated on this so that you yourself can play an active role in your health, but you're really educated on how to do that.
So I want to ask another question. So usually when we think about aging, and well, we do think about, we want the whole body to work well, but we also think about things like less wrinkles. We think about staying slim. We think about having more energy. If we make this commitment to trying to treat our gut biome a little better, do we get all those beauty benefits too?
Yeah, absolutely. We do. When we take care of our gut, we take care of our entire body. So don't think of it as just gut health. A lot of commercials, especially previous commercials, maybe 5-10 years ago, it was all about take these probiotics because they'll keep you regular. Well, that's true. But boy, they also, making sure we take care of our guts and we have probiotics and we have a very good, healthy gut microbiome will actually help our skin. It'll help our hairs on our head. It'll help our memory. It'll help our immune system. There's a long list. Yes, we'll be regular, but that really is kind of like a good side effect of all the other great things that it can do. Getting back to technology, a lot of people don't realize that if you sit in front of your computer for 6 to 8 to 10 hours a day, which a lot of people do for work, and you're on your phone, you actually can get wrinkles from that. So you gotta get out from your computer. You gotta get out. You gotta step away, and never, never, never spend more than 6 hours per day in front of your computer.
Wow. Uh-oh, I'm in trouble. Okay, so I want to switch gears a little bit. So you've been obviously doing this research for a long time, and in the process of researching one of your books, you met a 100-year-old woman named Lucille who helped you re-envision what old age should look like. Could you quickly tell us about that?
Sure. I was working on a book called Age to Perfection, How to Thrive to 100, Happy, Healthy, and Wise. And when I was doing that, I had a research assistant. I said, I'm pulling up all these studies and stuff, but wouldn't it be great if I could just talk to some of these people? They've been there, they've done that. That's where the real research needs to come from. And so I gave her this task. I said, why don't you find a handful of 100-year-olds I can talk to by next Friday? And I really thought there was no way this was going to happen. And she came back and she said, I have several for you to talk to, but you have to meet this one. You're going to love her, but she's only available on Tuesday because her schedule is full. And that should have been like my first, what? But she was absolutely the most amazing human being I'd ever met. We became best friends. She went out on book tour with me. She became a longevity expert herself. And she was the walking, talking, breathing example of everything that we talk about, that we write about. I'm the director of business development at Executive Medicine of Texas. People fly in from all over the globe to come there to learn how to be like Lucille, right? Because it's not just about getting that to that number. It is literally about making sure that when you get to that number and along the way, that those are healthy years. It's not just about the years. They got to be healthy years. Nobody wants to be sitting in a wheelchair drooling on themselves. We want to be active participants within our life. And that's what Lucille was. And she lived every moment of it. Trust me.
Fantastic. So when is your book going to come out on her?
So it should be out towards the end of 2019.
Okay.
And I'd love to see it go to a movie. I hope it will. She's a character that just needs to be brought to life.
Fantastic. Now, for those of you watching, if you want to be notified when the book comes out and find out more about Judy's other books, about her radio show, about her advice, all that stuff, we've got a link for you. Just go to yourbrilliance.org/Judy. That's yourbrilliance.org/JUDY. Thank you, Judy, for coming on the show. I appreciate all this fantastic stuff. And I wondered if you had any last message you would like to leave our viewers with.
Well, yeah, I have one thing. I want to tell your viewers, it's all about taking small steps. Find one thing that you can do. Maybe you correct your sleep. Maybe you drink more water. Maybe you limit your technology use. Find one thing, do it for a week, and then the next week, add on. And before you know it, you're going to be feeling younger and you're going to be feeling healthier.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And thank you out there for watching. We hope to see you again soon. Until then, let your brilliance shine.